Cuckoo for Politics is available on most popular podcast platforms, such as Apple, Spotify, and the Cuckoo for Politics YouTube channel. Hit the like button and subscribe so you won't miss an episode. Past episodes can be found on the website cuckooforpolitics.com. I will add links to those platforms and to my social media accounts, like on Facebook and Instagram, in the show notes below. Feel free to comment on either of those platforms, as I welcome all feedback. Appreciate your support. Take care. This is Michael, host of the political podcast, Cuckoo for Politics. I am so passionate about politics, hence the name Cuckoo for Politics, and I hope you are too. Thanks for joining. This is a podcast discussion on political perspectives on various issues that matter with citizens of the world. So I do ask that you grab your favorite libations, whether it be coffee, tea, water, juice, beer, wine, or a spirit or two, and let's get ready for some lively conversation and let's learn something together. Welcome to the premiere episode of The Debrief. This is a space where I share closing commentary on topics I've recently covered on the show. After each recording, my guests and I often find ourselves continuing the conversation off air. There's always more to unpack, and sometimes important points get left out simply due to time constraints. What I truly appreciate is that these post-show conversations often signal that the discussion was meaningful and there's still more to explore. Today you'll hear one-on-one with Sara Nelson, followed by a brief commentary. Enjoy. Hey, Sara, again, thanks for joining on the podcast. And this was very good. I could see you were passionate. That's why they call you what was I looking at? The Queen of Labor in America. Do you bring that passion everywhere you go? Or are you like, you're firing people up? Because I see that in other labor leaders. Are you that one?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like this is it's a lot of things, Michael. It's like the joy that you have with your flying partners when it can be the worst effing trip, but you have fun together. You know, you got a good crew and you can get through anything if you have a good crew. But it's also like the anger that I still carry because, you know, my friends died and damn it, you're not going to like make the rest of us have worse lives because of it. We're going to fight like hell in their name, right? That pushes me on. It pushes me on being a 30-year flight attendant and just seeing what I've seen, not only in our industry, but every other industry about what corporate America and multinational corporations are trying to do to workers around the world. They're trying to get us every single day to work harder for less. And so, yeah, I feel this. And do I run out of the energy? Do I have down moments? Yes. Yeah. No one sees those except the people, the very closest to me. No one sees those because people usually see this and they see it either in intensity with a clear silence, or they see it in me coming after them, or we help them understand on the Hill. We are going to talk to every single person because you're all on our planes and we're going to have an audience with you. Yeah. And they know I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm never, ever, ever. And I have to tell you, you know, I could use a union for my union because the one thing I don't typically have is vacation or weekends or, you know.
It's kind of lonely at the top sometimes. Interesting.
Well, but it's okay because I feel like, you know, I have a mission. I feel like, you know, I have a kid. I love my kid. I would do anything for my baby. But I feel like this is why I'm alive. This is why I'm alive, is to fight and to figure out how we can strategically build that leverage and push our careers forward and push back on the ugliness that would have us fighting with each other, keep us divided, delay improvements, try to demoralize us from fighting back.
I do feel that way.
Inspired to stop that, you know?
Mm-hmm. So even when I talk to supporters of like last year's election, presidential election was heated. And then after the election was over, there are times when people didn't talk. And so I engage back to those who did not vote the way I like them to do. And I still engage in that conversation because one thing is the rhetoric is this country does not belong to me. It does. I'm an investor. And so when there's an attack on diversity, I'm like, no, that's us. This is my country. And I think our organization
That's an attack on the working class, by the way.
Yeah,
who benefits from that division? Who benefits from it? Corporations. Let's be clear. Social justice is directly tied to economic justice. If we think we're in competition with each other as workers, if we think we're at odds with each other, they are going to run the tables every time. If we understand that we have a common objective, we have common demands, and we do, not just as flight attendants, but as other workers too, we do. And we can actually get something when we act together. If you think about a strike vote, you want that strike vote to be at a minimum 90%, right? Now, 99.99 is pretty damn good.
Very good.
But you want it to be up there. What else in America gets decided at over 90%? They win, when you get 50.1%, right?
Yeah.
And so they thrive on that division, on that divide. And we suffer for it. Mm-hmm. When we have unity and solidarity, we do better. That's just the basic reality in capitalism, in democracy. If workers stand together, there is nothing that can stop us. And, Mother Jones was a great organizer from 100 years ago. She's well known. People should pick it up and learn about Mother Jones. She has a great autobiography. It's a really easy read, by the way. Okay. And it's inspirational. And she said, the capitalists say there is no need of labor organizing, except the fact that they themselves are continually organizing shows us their real beliefs. The capitalists want the most amount of labor for the least amount of money. Labor wants the most amount of money for the least amount of labor.
Correct.
Labor built the world's palaces and created all the wealth, but neither lives in those palaces nor spends that wealth. If you would only understand that you hold the whole solution in your hand. If, for example, every worker in America were to simply hold up and stop working, the capitalists would yield to any and all demands because the world could not go on. Taking that power in your heart, that is the power that we have if we decide to stand together and fight through the division that allows them to take from us. And we can actually stand together. There are no illegal strikes. There are only unsuccessful ones. And we can get to a place where when we have a very clear agenda and we're actually standing up for each other, we can exercise that power among our work group and other work groups to get the agenda that we want in Washington, in politics, in the corporate boardroom. We can set the agenda if we decide to use our power together.
I do tell people that too. I said, don't lower when you lower the noise, we have more in common. And you said, how do we change these laws that were in the 1930s to present day? Why does the airline have to fall under the Railroad Act? And I was like, because every time we try to change things, we get distracted by it's CRT. A politician will politely say it's CRT's problem. It's the immigration. Like, where did that come from? And now you're distracted from moving forward with that because you're distracted by stupidity. But yes.
Divide, delay, distract, and demoralize. The 4 Ds of union busting. Anytime we're feeling any one of those, that's the union buster at work. That's not our coworker. That's not our neighbor. That's not the person who's at our children's PTA. That's the union buster at work. We have way more in common. If you look at crises, in a crisis, people come together. People come together, they help each other. It doesn't matter where they come from, what they look like. You have that humanity come out. Take that in. We remember the bad passengers, but there's way more good ones if we really think about it. The vast majority of people come to the door of our airplane with kindness in their heart and a desire for a safe, uneventful flight. Even if they've got their nose in their phone and they just don't want to talk, right? Mm-hmm. They just want peace. We have that commonality. We remember the bad stuff, but we got to focus on the good stuff because that's who we are, not the people who we ask every single day, how do they sleep at night? Trust me, they sleep just fine on their silk sheets, just fine. And so we have to get more serious about standing up for each other, talking with each other, finding those common demands and fighting for them.
And I think too, we as flight attendants, we as workers, we as American citizens, stay unified. Again, it's important to not get distracted with all the silliness that comes out of, you name it, any medium that you're looking at. But one of the things too, you talked about we're going to change things. Yes. And I think I wish there were, I do like that phrase. I wish there was a way that corporations and labor could actually get to the table, like you said earlier, but there's no law that forces them to do so. It's only agreed upon if so, but there's no law enforce it. So this is where whoever's the CEO at the time could change. Like, you know what? I agree. Like Oscar Munez, I think he seemed to be more agreeable to working with labor, but future CEOs are not that Oscar anymore. I mean, they may not be that Oscar. He was good.
Yeah, but Oscar was pretty clear with me. He's like, there's unions in the aviation industry. Do I wish I didn't have to deal with unions? Sure, Sarah. But there's unions in the aviation industry. It's part of it. So let's be clear. There are better CEOs than others, okay? But at the end of the day, it's whether or not we decide to stand together and use our power to make them have to deal with us, okay? And some are going to be more inclined to deal with us than others. But at the end of the day, if they don't have to, they won't. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter how good they are, how good they are. It doesn't matter. If we don't make them, they won't. And sometimes it's going to be more of a struggle than others. But at the end of the day, we only have power because we have a union. And that collective action together, that ability to speak with one voice if we decide to, right? And so we've got to do that. We got to do that. We got to say yes, and we're going to start the clock on the next negotiations. Yes, and I'm going to take that $1.2 billion from you, and you're not going to put it into stock buybacks. Yes, and we're going to continue to demand that we get paid for ground time, because that's coming back at you again. Yes, and you are not going to come back for cuts to our healthcare, because yes, and we are going to beat you again. So, we got to just keep pushing forward. And by the way, healthcare, retiree healthcare, all that stuff, that is something that we have to take on as a whole working class. We are never going to win that in our contracts alone, because they've made this standard across the industry that retiree healthcare is gone. They've made it standard to degrade pensions, defined benefit pensions, especially, single pensions. And they have made it standard that people have to work longer days in order to make more money. So we have to push back on that, not just among ourselves. We got to put this money in our pockets so they can't spend that money. They will take that $1.2 billion and they will give it to Wall Street. They will stuff it in their own pockets, and they will also spend it on trying to degrade unions even further so that we don't have the grounds to fight back.
Yeah, for real. And it's also trying to clear up misinformation that's out there, because even though the passion's there, you put all the information you want in one, they still believe in a lie. It goes, and it's so hard that you have to try to combat that. And that's problem not only in unions, but it's also society as a whole. You remember one candidate said another ethnic group is eating dogs and cats, and people believed it, even though there was no proof.
Yeah, but once it's on the internet, then AI will pick it up. So people need to understand that if you're looking to AI for answers, you're not going to get them, okay? Because that is built off of whatever is already there on the internet. And there's tons of misinformation. Delta doesn't want us to ratify this contract. United doesn't want us to ratify this contract. They will be very happy to keep us underpaid, overworked, underpaid, and not starting on these other improvements either. So let me clear up a couple things that I've heard, right? Because as I said before, I'm not your expert on all the little details in the TA. That don't come to me for all those little
details, but you were briefed on it.
Some of the big things. Yeah. Some of the big things that have been talked about, I do know, like our jump seat, that language that we negotiated, make sure that United flight attendants get that jump seat first. And the reason that we opened it up is so that we can start negotiating jump seat agreements with flight attendants at other airlines. It was not to open it up to pilots or mechanics or anybody else. This is about doing what we've been saying for a long time. We want to have reciprocal jump seat agreements and reciprocal cabin seat agreements, right? We want both of those things.
So now we're going to have the ability to
negotiate. Yes, and so we're going to go negotiate those, and that will get better. But we couldn't negotiate that when our contract said nobody but a United flight attendant can sit on the jump seat. So we had to make sure that we would change the language so that it's United flight attendants first, nobody else. United flight attendants first.
But another carrier can too.
Management has always been able to put a mechanic on there if that's the only way they're going to get them to go somewhere and fix an airplane, or, you know, very, very limited arrangements. But that jump seat is ours first. And then now we can go out and negotiate jump seat agreements with flight attendants from other airlines. So we can sit on American's jump seat. We can sit on Alaska's jump seat. We can sit on Allegiant's jump seat. We can, you know, and they can sit on ours after we all get on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's going to open us up. And yes, that's part of the yes. And let me talk about something else. The hotels, business like hotels is not a term in the hotel industry. But if it is, if we look to other businesses, they are starting to downgrade what business people who are on the road can stay in. So they are starting to book at Travel Lodges and La Quintas and all these other hotels that we would never, ever, ever stay in, right? So we had to strike that language out of our contract because we were in jeopardy of being downgraded. And arbitrator saw that. They would say, you know, what is the typical business hotel? Well, there could be an argument to be made that one of those would be satisfactory. No. We have a letter of agreement that has very specific requirements about the amenities that have to be at those hotels. And those hotels are Westins, they're Marriotts, they're Hiltons. You know, it's those standards.
You know why?
No.
I think why why people have there's a sense of mistrust. Only in the past they've been burned before when they would ask, like, why are we staying at a disapproved property? Why am I fighting for this? Why am I'm glad to have self-help.
Oh wait, I want to address this one. This is so great.
Slow down moving around because the visual is moving around.
Okay. So let me just address this because this is a great one. Okay. Now we are going to be a part of the entire procurement process. United has to send requests for proposals to hotels that we give them. So we get to say on the list which hotels send those requests for proposals, and they have to share all of the responses with us. Then there has to be consensus on the hotel that's picked. Yes, this is a big, big change. Both of those things were a change. But then also there is the ability to have an arbitration if we don't agree. So, you know, previously, if we didn't like something, we had to sort of argue that it didn't meet the standards of the contract. Now it says there's an arbitration just over the fact that we don't agree on the specific cities and the proposals that come back. So we get to make the argument about why. It already says it. There's no argument about whether there will be an arbitration or anything. That will happen. And that in and of itself is a deterrent from United disagreeing with us. That's going to be time and money that they have to spend. That is a deterrent to them because they don't want to have to spend that time and money to go to arbitration, right? So it's better for them to come to an agreement with us.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we have, when you say like they could just do this and there were no consequences, we built in new levels of transparency in the process and also consequences. There's an end result. There's not just this never ending, no resolving of disputes. There's a way to resolve disputes. And what that encourages is agreement, because nobody likes to have somebody else come in and tell you how it should apply. That actually encourages parties to reach agreement together. So we're going to have a lot more agreement. We're going to have a lot more hotels where, you know, we're happier with that. As we go through the process of negotiating new hotel agreements, that's going to get better and better if this contract ratifies. But we don't get that started if it doesn't ratify. And so we're going to continue to feel the frustrations that we feel today. But this contract starts to get at some of that, of the very black and white language and clear process for consequences for the company if they're not following through. If they're not following through on the implementation of the contract, there's consequences, and there's an arbitrator already picked to be able to resolve those disputes and not have to wait forever.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the frustration, waiting forever, taking time. So I know we were talking about patent bargaining, that we try to mirror what others or try to take what their successes or failures and then try to imply it on us and improve upon it. So, and one of the things that members wanted was penalty pay, because again, like I said before, we've always been abused and the company twists things around, and we don't have that anymore. But I see what you're saying. You're saying the company was not going to agree on penalty pay because no other airline does that too. However, the union was able to insert a backdoor as far as the arbitration for the hotel, so it shortens the time period when if there's a dispute between labor and the company. I see that's where you were going with this.
That's right. And there's a resolution, and it encourages agreement with us. It actually says that there has to be a consensus on that hotel, which means that the company doesn't just get their way. It also means the union doesn't just get our way. There has to be an agreement. Yeah, there has to be an agreement on that hotel. They don't hold all the cards anymore if this ratifies.
Yeah, and now, well, we'll still see out there. Any other rumors you want to clear up to? That you live in a mansion and
available. That's something that we have to do today. But this is like only if you lose time. You know that you if you're out on your layover, you don't have to answer the phone, and you don't have to going forward. But did we gain something? Let me tell you something. There was no way we were getting out of these negotiations without electronic notification, because every single day our leverage around that decreases, because as more and more people come on this property who are used to just being able to push a button, text somebody instead of talk to them, more and more flight attendants were doing that and accruing that benefit to the company, which weakens our bargaining power to get protections in electronic notification. So we have incredible protections written into this electronic notification that preserves our reassignment language, that ensures that we know in black and white what we're responsible for, what we're not responsible for, that maintains the ability to have your time off on your layover, to have your time off once you get your assignment and until you report for your trip. All of those things were really important, but it's also in black and white about what our responsibilities are and when those responsibilities are required. And we will no longer have to wait on the phone for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours in an operational meltdown. The clock starts ticking the minute that flight cancels, just like it does for the passengers. It'll be the same notification. So now they've only got 4 hours, and if they don't have their shit together, too bad, so sad. We're getting paid, and we're not getting that reassignment. And
what? You know what? You said.
Good.
I know we worked on improvements, collective bargaining under RLA. Can we ever use the Federal Aviation Reauthorization Act to insert some improvements in our workplaces, or we're exempt from that because I figured that could be another backdoor if we didn't get any improvements before. Can we ever use that?
So the FAA Reauthorization Act is intended to be for safety and functioning of the government programs, not functioning of the private industry. Could we use it as a means to change the Railway Labor Act? Yeah, but it goes back to that same notion. You got to have the political power to make sure that the changes that you're going to get are going to be good changes, right? So yes, if we build up the political power that allows us to get what we want in legislation, then we can use any avenue we want to use in order to get those changes. We can be very creative about that. But you got to have that power before you start that conversation on the Hill, because if you can believe it, it could actually get worse.
It could get worse. Wow. Yeah, that's what I was.
Believe it.
Yeah, I can't. I feel like it can get worse.
I have the example of McCain from the early 2000s. His suggestion was these negotiations go on forever. So after a period of time, it should be just baseball style arbitration, which means an arbitrator just decides what our contract looks like. We don't get to vote. We don't want that in the law. We don't want them, having that ability to just take it to that point and always have an arbitrator decide what our contract looks like. That's the kind of thing where it could get worse. Now, we have a lot of ideas about how it could get better, but we got to build up the political power to be able to get what we want.
Yeah, no, for real, for truth, because it seems like I said, we can't get distracted, but it's hard to keep people in the fold or solidarity because it's not distraction by what I just saw as far as the culture wars. it's distraction even at home, because you may have other family members or other responsibilities that you really can't devote the time into advocating for change. Yeah. Sarah, again, it's been great talking to you. I mean, I don't know. First of all, why are you drinking coffee if you're already caffeinated? I'm like, you're just so full of energy. I'm like, you notice I only took two sips because the energy that I was getting from you was, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I am done. For real.
So if I'm being totally honest, this is water.
Okay.
But I do have my two shots of espresso every morning. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I do 2 shots of espresso because I can also drink it very quickly. And
okay. And keep it moving.
The truth is, this is water. This is water.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad, because there are times when I have other podcast discussions and we're drinking real stuff, because sometimes it gets so crazy with the issues that we talk about. If you ever check past episodes, we're just laughing because I'm like, this can't be real. Cannot be real.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I people need to get it out, because it's a really frustrating time. And people also know that I get really passionate. I can get really emotional too, right?
I didn't notice.
I could right now. I'm choosing to stay smiling because I'm in the back galley with one of my favorite flight attendants.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to smile here. But if you think I don't scream and cuss and get pissed off, then I don't know what you're smoking, because who wouldn't get screaming and pissed off and cussing in this moment in time? For a million reasons, but mostly because corporations have taken way too much of our wealth. They have taken way too much of our time, and we need to get it back.
Oh, for real. And then with healthcare, like you said, if we could fight these legislation improvements in healthcare particularly, then we wouldn't have to negotiate these terms.
Imagine if we didn't have to negotiate it, and it was just a single payer option. You don't even have to get rid of all the other options people might want to buy also, but a single payer option. Think about it in terms of power of collective bargaining.
Yeah.
If you have the entire country in an effort to negotiate with those healthcare companies, think about how much power you have to get better plans. Okay. And
just like
in Canada, they have that single payer option. Canada has healthcare as an option for all of its citizens, right? And so when they go to the bargaining table, they don't have to talk about that. I was talking with some unions in Canada, and they were blown away by how much time we had to spend at the table talking about healthcare.
Yes.
Imagine if we didn't have to spend that time at the table, or that political capital, or that money. If that were something that was provided by the government, we could take that off of our negotiating table. And it would just take care of everyone.
Yeah. We definitely lost that sense of community as a country, and corporations know that because they get the Cadillac versions of healthcare. I mean, unions do too, to a degree, but not as much as the non-union. Well, not as much as the federal or state workers, particularly the elected officials, because
and mostly those corporate suites. Those corporate suites that have endless dollars to give them whatever they need.
Yeah.
We should all be entitled to that.
Yeah. And I'm glad we touched on the railway, how we're exempt from certain things, but the other workers are not exempt. And so they could strike, they could bargain faster, where it expires, but ours is amendable. That's a good learning tool. That's not known.
Yeah. And then just one other thing, the sunset clause. We had retiree healthcare. Now, retiree healthcare option in under the old United contract, it wasn't great because it was a product of the bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So, let's be clear. When you qualify for retiree healthcare after 25 years at United Airlines, you'd still be paying 40% of the cost of that healthcare. And that doesn't include the caps that we have. You know how we pay 20%, but there's a cap of 7% rising every year? That retiree healthcare doesn't have any of those caps. So we're talking about a lot of money for that retiree healthcare. Now, in the merger negotiations, United did not want to extend that retiree healthcare to the Continental flight attendants, and that's why there was the sunset clause put in place, where it would be 15 years where people would have the option to retire with the former healthcare. But they didn't want to extend it because it's an accrual on their books. This is a problem not just with the airline industry, this is a problem across the economy. The way that corporations are required to report out that retiree healthcare makes it extremely expensive. This is another political issue that we need to work on. We're not going to solve it just at our bargaining table. We have to work with other workers to fix this because it's wrong. But I'll tell you what, that retiree healthcare is not what it used to be. It's extremely expensive. Some people can go out and get healthcare at the same rate on other exchanges. And what we did in this contract, what we were able to do is to extend that sunset of that possible plan for another year, which means it's 3 years after we start bargaining on the next contract if this ratifies, which gives us time to fight then to have everybody have retiree healthcare. But that is really something that we can't just be fighting alone, because we're up against a system that makes retiree healthcare so expensive that corporations don't want to keep it.
Yeah, they don't want to keep it. My parents had good health care when they retired, but that's long gone. They had a good pension. That's long gone.
It's long gone.
The business model has changed, and it's egregious of what they're been able to get away with, particularly with the political climate. And that's regardless of who's in power. That's definitely who's...
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. As long as corporations control our politics, it doesn't matter who's in office. We're going to continue to experience harm from that. So we have to make sure that we have enough power. And that's power in numbers. This isn't, politics like we're spending money. This is like, no, we're united, and it's our vote together that makes the difference. It's our power. We bring them to us. We don't go to them. We bring them to us. And right now, they've got the hand up against us, right? Because they don't care. They don't care about what the little person says. When Musk can buy an election, when one person has enough money to buy an entire election, they don't care. Why would they care what we have to say, right? So, it's sad. Of course, they should care because they're human beings, but they don't care because that's not how the process is working right now.
Yeah, and it was symbolic in the inauguration because you didn't see labor leaders at the podium. You only saw corporations who were there represented in full. Even, what I laugh about? During the inauguration, the time that was so cold that it had to go inside. Let me just note that during Obama's inauguration that I attended, it was cold too, but everyone showed up. But that's a different story. But what I laugh at is that the governor of Florida, DeSantis, he was not even allowed to be on the podium. He had to go to the overflow because the CEOs, they were present, and the president
the oligarchs
show that
the oligarchs
they want to show that who's in charge.
About this. In the last 10 years, their wealth has gone from a couple billion to hundreds of billions of dollars. Just think about that, okay? And it's still not enough for them. I'll leave you with this one thought. People say a rising tide lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. Well, if you focus on the boats, they're very quickly becoming bigger and bigger yachts, right?
Yes.
But just remember this. We're not the boats. We're the tide. Mm-hmm. And if we decide to roll in together as the tide, we can upend those boats. Oh. That's what we got to do.
100%. I'll just leave it right there. Drop the mic. There's no need to even add any further. That is so true. I love that analogy. I'll have to use that when I'm public speaking. I like that. For sure. Yeah. Oh man, Sarah, there's too much to go on. I have so many other topics, but I'm like, it's not enough time. There's definitely not enough time.
We can come back. I'm kind of cuckoo for your politics, so okay. I'll come back again.
All right, please. Thank you again for everything. All right, and we'll circle back and hang out again. All right, and then anytime, of
that
course,
sounds good.
For the Delta organization, give me a holler. I'll be helpful. All right.
Oh, maybe you'd like to talk to a couple Delta flight attendants about what they're working on.
I would love to. That would be great to see where they stand. We could set that up. We could set that for sure to see how they would what they like, dislike, what they're anticipating, and how the TA, like you said earlier, is being manipulated to say you don't need a union because look what they were able to get them, but we could get you more. And not realizing it's a policy that we'll get you more today, but in 2 days, I may pull that back.
Yeah, or we're going to give you a pay increase, but we're going to cut your health care over here.
Yeah. I can't believe what you said about you. What did you say about you? Healthcare. I think they have
about the hotels.
Yes, mind-boggling. Maybe we'll give it to you.
I know, we've had it since 1980, and they still don't have it. Anyway, so yeah.
We'll do that. All right, enjoy your time with the family. Thanks again. We'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
All right. Before I close, I want to leave you with this. Flight attendants are the heart and face of the airline industry. They're first to greet passengers. They're the ones who ensure safety in the skies and the people who manage the constant growing demands of the traveling public with grace, skill, and resilience. It's worth looking back at how this profession began. In the 1930s, Ellen Church, a nurse and a pilot at a time when women weren't allowed to fly commercially, convinced airlines to hire women as stewardesses, laying the groundwork for the flight attendant profession we know today. Thank you, Ellen. Since then, the role has evolved, but the courage and dedication have remained the same. These professionals are trained to handle medical emergencies, evacuate planes during crises, and de-escalate dangerous situations, often without the public ever knowing. Over the years, their union has fought for and secured important advancements in pay, work rules, and benefits through various contract cycles, including the current tentative agreement presented to the United Airlines flight attendant. But let's be clear. Not all issues have been resolved to the level these professionals deserve. Airlines in general continue to expand services, adding more to the plates of flight attendants, yet staffing remains stagnant, making their job significantly harder. The business model in corporate America has changed, driven by the desire to do more for less, and the current political climate favors business over labor, making it even harder for workers to achieve meaningful change. We must also remember, in a democracy, majority rules, and every vote counts. As a union members, it's essential to vote based on factual information, not hearsay or social media rumors. There's a lot of misinformation circulating, and it's critical to attend contract meetings, whether in person or virtually, just to take the time to understand the terms. Make an educated vote, because voting no just for the sake of voting no is not a strategy. Just a few years ago, the political and corporate environment was more favorable to labor. Today, this CEO and the climate coming out of Washington, with the backdrop of potential economic and geopolitical uncertainty, creates a different landscape for every union member weighing whether to vote yes or no. It's a risk, and it is a decision that must be made thoughtfully. Yet it is worth noting that our union has managed to push the company to the terms that exceed their competitors, a significant achievement given that the pattern bargaining is a method United uses to ensure they are not paying above the current market value. Despite the company's demands and efforts, the union has pushed the envelope. But there are limits, and the rank and file must understand what the environment looks like if a no vote is a majority. If that happens, the union will return back to the table at a time, and members must stand behind the union, demonstrating they want the changes they seek. That's attending meetings. That's participating in any event the union sanctions. The union is only as strong as its membership. The company and the industry are watching, and what happens next depends on each member's willingness to participate, to learn, and to vote responsibly. I am proud to be a United Airlines flight attendant, as we are not just the face of the airline, we are its protectors, we are its heart, and we are often the quiet heroes. To my fellow colleagues, vote. To the traveling public, be kind and supportive for these individuals who care and make it possible for the safety and integrity of the airline travel. This is Michael, host of the political podcast Cuckoo for Politics. Thanks again for tuning in. Until the next episode, stay blessed.